Hey folks, Ben Gilbert here with Engadget, and I've got a lively crew of Gamescom affiliates here. We've got James True of Engadget, we've got Richard Mitchell, reviews editor at Joystiq.com, and Alexander Slowinski, also news editor at Joystiq.com. And we're going to talk a little bit about the big show that we're at right now. We're at Gamescom 2013 in Cologne, Germany. It's a huge public show. The public hasn't actually started coming in yet, but the people you see streaming behind us are the kind of business and press folks. And we've seen a little bit from some of the big players in the game industry this week. We've seen EA had a big live event. We saw Microsoft with a sort of weird showcase event. And Sony had a big press conference last night. So jumping in, Microsoft is first up. And we saw their big indie push, Xbox ID at Xbox, independent developers at Xbox. And what did you guys think? Did you think that's like the right move? Do you think that's the smart way to start things at Gamescom?
It's the only move. They have to do that.
Yeah?
Like, it's... And I think they probably wanted to do it all along, and I think that Sony pushed it real hard and made Microsoft look bad in the process, because Microsoft wanted to stick to its marketing plan, and now it's finally out there. So.
Meanwhile, Sony pushed it hard again, like last night at the press conference, and it was still like it was almost awkward this time around.
It was too much almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
E3 was very much, everyone's rah rah rah, whereas the Sony press conference this time around, there were jokes that just like silence.
Sure, absolutely. But turning back to Microsoft's program, I wonder if it's too little, too late, right? Is it already that they're reacting? Is it that they are doing something that does it come off badly because they're doing it so much later than the competition?
Well, you have to look at it in terms of independent developers, because it's for them. It's not for us. It's money on the table that Microsoft now has a piece of, but it's. This first wave, Sony has a lot of developers who came out and said it's going to come out first console exclusive to PlayStation 4 and Vita. But if you're an independent developer, why would you not release on another platform? Because you want all the money you can get. That's why Xbox Live Arcade has been so problematic, because they wanted to put it on that platform because they thought it was the biggest and the best.
Sure.
But then they're locked to exclusivity, and they can't put on other platforms, and that bit some developers in the end.
Yeah, and so from what I've heard, people are relatively responsive. The indies that signed on, there's a nice quote from Chris Hecker, who's a pretty prominent indie dev. And beyond the indie stuff, though, Microsoft also showed a bunch of games, right? They showed Dead Rising 3, they showed Fable Legends a little bit, they teased that for the future, and you guys have all played some of this stuff, right? So could you guys give a kind of, what's the best game you've played here from Xbox, if anything?
The only one I've played full out or seen real in depth is Dead Rising 3, which I saw just now. And it's kind of crazy. It's nice. It's open world now, so there's no like zone loads or anything like this.
Sure.
So it's pretty free roaming. They've got like all the vehicle combos now. So yeah, you can.
Yeah, they showed the steamroller with
roller
with a flamethrower on it.
It's a motorbike steamroller. It's
still kind of a goofy game.
Right, really goofy. There's all there's sort of a load of Capcom winks and nudges, like you can do Street Fighter moves if you get the rights of, all these sort of
just
stuff.
like a Mega Man helmet, just to stab you in the heart.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can dress up in in suspenders and all that all that good stuff.
And that's Microsoft's big exclusive this holiday with the launch of the Xbox One, and we weren't given a release date for that. And that was kind of the end of Microsoft's showcase, right? There was a handful of games that they were showing off in the independent
every
developer
European
program.
Xbox comes with FIFA 14.
That's huge for Gamescom. Yeah.
You forgetting the big European.
Well, it's big for Europe, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Not necessarily huge for James. Not a huge soccer fan.
No, I'm not.
Contextualize here how big it is that FIFA comes with every Xbox.
FIFA is a huge game.
Sure. Absolutely.
Football, I'm going to call it football. We're going to go with that. Is massive here. Obviously, it's kind of
European.
I don't know what the
European rules football.
European rules football. Sorry, I just had something attack me on my glasses.
Of course.
Yeah. It's a big deal, and they had all the footballers over there, had a couple of pros over to support each, which got a big reaction from the crowd. You could spot who was from which side of the pond, because everyone was, oh my God, it's Ruud Gullit, and everyone else like,
right, and the rest of us are like, now we can finish writing our posts.
Right, yeah. Sort of thing. So I think that's good. I think it's a sweetener.
Cool. And moving on to EA the next day, they just had a bunch of more, right? It was the same stuff we've seen at E3. It was Titanfall, it was Battlefield 4, it was a big part of FIFA, it was a big part of the conference.
That's what it felt like. EA just felt like more. Like, there was nothing really exciting about it. We've been there and we've done.
There was a lot of focus on exclusive content for Xbox.
Sure. Yeah, they seem to be working pretty heavily with Xbox, and there's a handful of other developers that seem to be working pretty heavily with Sony.
Right.
Ubi, as in particular, it's always had kind of a history of working with Sony pretty closely on some of their stuff, and it's hard to, I think, talk about EA for our audience a little bit just because it's been, there's still Battlefield 4, there's still Titanfall, there's still FIFA and UFC and all this other stuff, but it's not necessarily something where there's this huge news jump, right? They're supporting next gen in a big way, and that's that.
That UFC was pretty. That was kind of
like technically it looked incredible.
All the sort of grimacing and all that stuff.
Sure,
but I kind of felt like I was getting told a lot more about what being sold UFC.
Yeah, that's absolutely part of it.
The way the talk was structured was kind of like a bit of a presentation about UFC first, and there's this game with things.
Well, I don't think the game is. I think there's still a lot of game to be made there, probably, and that's probably part of the reason why we're seeing only some of it so far. But moving on from EA, the last thing we did, the biggest press conference probably here was Sony's, where they finally gave a date. It's coming out November 15th in the US and November 29th, I believe, in Europe. It's €399, £349, and $399.
Sony has always brought it to Gamescom.
They've always treated Europe as a serious market. Sure.
Very, very well. And usually had strong announcements here. So having the release date announcement of PlayStation 4, and just that first half of that press conference was really exciting. I mean, there was a lot of really great independent titles that were featured, and the first half was a lot of new, and then the second half felt like we were back at the EA conference again, where it's we've been here, we've done this.
And let's not forget how that conference kicked off, minus the one technical hiccup, but they had Shuhei Yoshida sitting in a wonderful wingback leather chair, just flying through these PlayStation 4 menus, and doing some really impressive stuff. Like he looks at information about Killzone, Shadowfall, and then he starts watching a live stream of it. You can see the guy in his headset playing the game.
Was he really doing that though? Or because from where we were sat, all you could see was the back of the wingback chair.
True.
Right?
True.
We don't really know that the tweet that he made during the conference was on his account.
Right.
Yeah,
it's actually out there. So, but that's what he did. And then he watched a live stream, jumped into the game that was being live streamed, and then took a screenshot, stuck it on Twitter, all within the span of about 3 minutes.
And this is something that James and I talked about a little earlier today, was that Sony's willing to really show. They really come out and they show what they're doing. And Microsoft didn't really demonstrate that here at all. In fact, the platform demos, they had bullet points, and the platform demo that they're showing here with the dashboard, they're not showing publicly. They actually wouldn't let us capture video of it and saying that it's still too early. And it's like your console's coming out soon.
They did it one time at the reveal when they did all the Kinect motion.
There's snippets out there, but
and I was at a publisher this afternoon. I was at a meeting for a game, and they wanted to show it on Xbox One, and it kind of just didn't work.
And stuff like that is really working against their message, I think, right? Like it's really not helping in the eyes of us as press, and I imagine in the eyes of consumers a lot as well.
I mean, I'm sure all of you do the same thing in every single PlayStation 4 and Xbox One demo. You press the PS button or the guide button to see if anything
immediately
happens.
Yes, of course. And it's always disabled on all of them.
It never happens.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I ask is, can I take photos? And they're like, no. You're like,
really? Like, really? No photos, really?
Right, I'm going to have to draw a picture of this game so that my readers can know what's going on with this.
It looked really good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the gist, the basic gist of Gamescom 2013. But we have much more so far. We have much more, though, of course, on Engadget.com and Joystiq.com as the week goes on. And please check those things out. Thank you, everybody, for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you, Internet.